was going to say, can you hear me, mother? Because you might remember that. I'm Pete Taylor. I'm 101 years old, or I like to think 101 years young. I have never regarded age as a hindrance, and I've tried to go through life with a very positive outlook. And so, in that sense, I'm pleased to be here today, trying something different again. It's possible I may fall flat on my face. It's possible you may have to carry me out. The possibilities are all there. So I hope you're ready to respond to whatever situation arises. I will do my best to behave, but there's no promise. I've already seen one or two familiar faces from my past. The lady to the rear of me here is a face I'll never forget, because for many, many years she was music teacher at Wistaston Green, not Wistaston, the poor relation down the road at Wistaston Green. She was my music teacher, and she was a fantastic person, not only with the kids, but also with the staff and everybody else. So coming here today and just meeting Myra has made my day. So can I go home now? No, I don't mean it. The reason we're here, of course, is Remembrance Day. And I suppose I've been asked to come and say from the older end, or probably the oldest end. Is there anybody else in the 90s? Yes. Oh, there must be some, yes. Well done. Enjoy it. Happy daft. Pays off. I think no matter what age, you've got to enjoy yourself at that age and do whatever you can. You're not going to be able to do the same as those characters down here. And I hope these characters down here would run rings round me. Are you going to? You've gone quiet. It's not usual for the youngsters to be quiet. You're supposed to be noisy. You're built to be noisy. And torment parents. That's your role in life. I have had a happy life. I'm not complaining about anything. The saddest part of my life happened 6 months ago when my wife died. She was 100. We'd had a marvellous life. Meeting in the early part of the Second World War and getting married in the last months of the World War. I'm not a native of Crewe, so any odd behaviour, you could blame it not on Cheshire, but on Yorkshire. I'm a Yorkshire brat, and I'm entitled from where I was born to call myself a tyke. I qualify as a Yorkshire tyke. And I was born in the village, which not many of you will know, Hellyfield, near to Skipton, and settled in 1924. The family I was born into, my mother, my father worked for the London and North Western Railway. And in a way, that's how I came to be in Crewe, because he moved. My mother and father, my father was Bill Taylor, William Taylor, if you want his full Sunday name. My mother was Ada Watson, and she had been born in Skipton, not far from Hellyfield. They already had 3 children when I arrived on the scene. I had a sister when I was born who was 25 years of age. So there's a big gap. I had a brother who was 21 years older than me. I know what you're all thinking. It's the odd one. I had a younger sister who was 13 years older than me, Phyllis. And we all lived in 33 Midland Terrace, Hellyfield. At this time, I was born in 1924. I didn't live there long because my father got a promotion and he was sent by the Midland Railway Company, who we worked for, to Redditch in Worcestershire. Redditch, which any of you who are fishermen, or any of you ladies who are into a lot of needlework, will recognise as being the hometown of fishing needles, fishing tackle, and pins and needles and accessories for dressmaking, Terry's and other big factories. It was at Hellyfield that tragedy hit our family. My mother died when I was 10 years of age. But rather tragically, and she left, of course, my father with 4 children to bring up, from a 28-year-old to me, 2 or 3-year-old. So life was not easy for my father. And of course, at my age, it didn't make the slightest difference, would it? Did it? No. I grew up in this house with a lot of love and affection, particularly from my sister Gladys, who had given up her job in Hellyfield at the big house, the big house where the money was. She worked there. She was a governess to the family's 3 young children. And she lived in the house with the family, and everywhere with them. Previously, she, unusual for a village girl, had gone to the grammar school in Settle and travelled by rail every day there and back. And I've always maintained that my sister was the brightest of the 4 of us. Gladys was very bright. It is possible that some of you may know her because she had a lot to do with the church in Stewart's Crewe, especially the new church. She was very much involved there, and for a long time after he retired, her husband was the caretaker there. But Gladys was a very bright and sprightly woman. She lived until she was 98. See, I'm in trouble already. I haven't got all day, I've just been told. I don't suppose you have. Anyway, we'll skip forward a bit. We'll skip forward, shall we, till my father moved again to Birmingham, and then he moved again to Crewe. And we moved into Bedford Street, Crewe. And that was in 1939. I beg your pardon, 1929. And I was just 5. And I went to school locally, Bedford Street School in Crewe. My friends were all from that area. And there was a scout group just across the road from where I lived, in Bedford Street. And initially, when it was built, it meant absolutely nothing. But as I grew older, and I began to accept friendships and began to get involved in little groups, I became involved in scouting, and I joined the Compact at Bedford Street. And it was my first introduction to scouting. And I've been in scouting ever since. In fact, I still am. I think at the moment, they're very actively trying to find a way to humanely get rid of me. Anyway, I'm still here, and they're all still thinking. I became involved in scouting, and that involved me in other things. But the big involvement in Crewe that played an important part in my life, addition to scouting, was the circus came to Crewe. And I went to see this circus. And you know, that decided me my life path. I was going to join that circus. No, not a lion tamer, I'm not that brave. But I decided I was going to go. My brother-in-law to be, Gladys's boyfriend, they were getting married soon, took her. And so we went into the middle of Crewe. Do any of you know where Merrill's Bridge is? You do? If you stand on Merrill Bridge, you have a real good view of Bentley, don't you? Do you agree? Yeah. Well, in 1932, I went to Merrill's Bridge, and I stood on the coping stones on the top of the bridge with my sister's boyfriend hanging onto my snake belt to stop me falling on the railway lines down below, to go to the circus. Didn't stay there long because a policeman said it was too dangerous and it demanded I got down. I didn't like that policeman. Anyway, you look me a bit puzzled about the circus. Well, it was a different circus. There were no animals. None. But what there were lots of aeroplanes. Single-engine aeroplanes swooping in the sky, over the treetops, over the tops of the people standing on Merrill Bridge, just over the top of our heads. The circus was Sir Alan Cobham's flying circus, which toured the country, bringing aviation to the British people. Because aviation had grown out of the First World War, and it was still not popular. The saying of the day that went with aviation was, only birds and fools fly. That was the attitude. People hadn't got much time for aviation. But to me, that Saturday afternoon was absolutely unbelievable. I mocked it up. Single-engine planes from the First World War, fighting mock battles in the sky. People walking on the wings of aeroplanes, sitting in a basket chair that moved along the lower wing. Planes with sometimes two people in, shooting at one another, mock shooting. I couldn't get enough of it. I was loving it. And I stood there all afternoon. The reason we were on the bridge was it cost sixpence to go into the field. And in those days there was mass unemployment in Crewe, and people hadn't got much money. So the Merrill's Bridge spot was excellent. And when the policeman stopped me from standing on the bridge in the end, I sat on my brother-in-law's shoulders, and he was 6'3", so I had an even better view. I loved the afternoon, but I was so upset. I wanted to ride in one of those planes. Yes, you could have a ride. They had some two-engine planes, biplanes, and for 5 shillings you can get a 10-minute flight around the town. And people were queuing up to pay their £5 to have this flight over Crewe. Oh, how I envied those people. I wanted to be up there. We spent the whole afternoon there, and eventually the road was cleared by the police, and we had to move on. But that set me off. I wanted to fly. And so I was looking for ways to get to fly. How I could, I don't know. I'm getting signals to get on with it. I'm running out of time. I've run out of time. Oh dear, I've run out of time. Anyway, it made me determined to get into the sky. How? I was 8 years of age at the time. I got into the Air Force eventually, but it was 10 years later, at the age of 18, when the war was on. I got there, was my 4th attempt. I tried when I was 14 and a half to join the Air Force as an apprentice. I was told my academic qualifications were not good enough. I tried again at 14 to get in as a boy apprentice, a boy entrant. That was going to Hendon College in London. This time, I was after an examination, medical examination. It was agreed that I was not strong enough physically to take the training. So, and did you go? He's the one under pressure. Oh, right. Oh, I think they worried about me hanging myself. No, I don't feel like doing that. Not today, anyway. I'll wrap it up. Anyway, as I say, I got there, but I got there when the war broke out. And I, like every 18-year-old in those days, when you were 18, you had to register for national service. And I remember going to Crew Tower Hall, the old building in the middle of the town, registering that I was 18, being very pleased when they passed me fit, and put on the Royal Air Force Auxiliary Reserve as a reservist waiting training. I was thrilled to bits. And I volunteered to become a radio officer in the flying corps, the RAF. I've done it. And this time my father couldn't stop me. There's loads more. You'll just have to invite him back next year for the second part.